Chapter 44, 44. Nick Fury considered the image of himself wearing a monocle over his one good eye, then shook his head and declined the offer. I think one eye accessory is my limit, old friend. It would look a little strange. After a moment, a thought occurred to Fury, and a wry smile touched his lips. You know, I was wondering why I've been seeing more monocles around the Triskelion lately. Turns out they're all just copying you, the esteemed former director. It seems there are still plenty of people around here trying to curry your favor. Pierce calmly placed the monocle back into its socket, his own smile unreadable. Really? It appears many people in the bureau simply share my refined taste. A clear view can be illuminating. At the Xavier Institute for Gifted Youngsters, also known as Academy X, Amon pushed open the door to Professor Charles Xavier's office. Without waiting for an invitation, he pulled over a chair, sat down, and propped his feet up on the corner of the professor's desk as if he owned the place. Professor Xavier, who had been engrossed in a newspaper, looked up, startled. A warm smile quickly replaced his surprise. Amon, you've actually returned to school. I was beginning to think you and Ilyana planned to skip the entire month. Amon propped his head on his hand. Professor, I thoroughly enjoy my classes here. It's Ilyana who finds school life a bit dull. It just so happened that some interesting events were unfolding in New York, so I took her out for a bit of extracurricular activity. Charles chuckled. A bit of activity? You've been gone for over a week. If I didn't know you better, I would have assumed you'd gotten into some kind of trouble. Amon waved a hand dismissively, shifting in his seat. Professor, don't you find the current educational model for mutants a bit uninspired? Perhaps it's time for a different approach. A different approach? Charles repeated, his brow furrowing. He shook his head slowly. Are you suggesting more social activities, like students at other schools? I tried that, but as you know, mutants are different. Our students possess incredible, sometimes volatile, abilities. Not everyone has the control you do, which often leads to accidents. For their safety and the public's, I've had to limit their contact with the outside world. Amon stretched out a finger and wagged it back and forth. I disagree, Professor. He straightened up, and under some unseen force, his chair slid smoothly across the floor until it was directly in front of Xavier's desk. You're right that accidents happen, but your conclusion is flawed. Mutants are no different from anyone else, they just have special abilities. Even an ordinary person will cause chaos if you put them in an environment they aren't suited for. Our students aren't the problem. They're just not in the right place. Charles leaned forward, his interest piqued. You make a valid point. But where is this right place for us? You seem to have an idea. Professor, what is a person with superpowers best suited for? Amon asked with a knowing smile. Charles considered this for a few moments before answering tentatively, becoming a superhero. Amon shook his head. No. Not just becoming superheroes. They are most suited to becoming stars. Idols. Modern myths. A large question mark seemed to hang over Charles's head. He had never considered such an answer. Amon elaborated, think about it, Professor. People with astonishing abilities, professionally packaged and promoted, would captivate the public. We can present mutants as the heroes of their own stories, putting them on the big screen. You've always worked to integrate mutants into human society, have you not? This is the perfect vehicle. Look at Captain America, the super soldier from World War II. Decades later, he is still a beloved icon, the very embodiment of the American spirit. And Tony Stark, who just declared himself a hero, is already an idol to millions. As Charles mulled over Amon's words, a spark of excitement lit his eyes, only to dim just as quickly. He sighed. The idea is brilliant, Amon, truly. But its implementation would require immense support. Funding is one thing, but the government would never agree to such a plan. Professor, as long as you agree, I have everything else covered, Amon said with a confident smile. All I need is a cast of superpowered individuals to play the part of heroes. Charles asked in surprise, covered? What have you prepared? Amon pinched the crystal-like monocle on his eye. Did I not mention it? He asked innocently before continuing, I have a company. I recently partnered with Tony Stark to establish a superhero-centric enterprise. We've even decided on a name, Marvel. Marvel, Charles breathed. What a wonderful name. Amon, you are even more remarkable than I imagined. To have accomplished so much on your own. So, you agree, Professor? Excellent. I'll just borrow the X-Men for a while. I'll return them when we're finished. Before Charles could respond, Amon stood up, walked to the door, and waved goodbye. Farewell, Professor. Charles watched him go, a bemused laugh escaping him. That boy. The current leader of the X-Men was Scott Summers, also known as Cyclops. At that moment, 3 people occupied his office, himself, his girlfriend Jean Grey, and an unwelcome intruder, Wolverine. Seeing Logan lounging shamelessly in his office, Scott felt a familiar spike of irritation. Logan, he said, his tone sharp, why are you always hanging around my office? Don't you have anywhere else to be? Before Logan could offer a gruff retort, Jean spoke up. Scott, how can you say that? Logan wants to join the X-Men. It's only natural he'd want to spend time with the team's leader. Hearing his girlfriend defend Logan made Scott's blood boil, but he choked back his anger, turning his head to the side to avoid looking at his rival. Humph! The atmosphere in the room grew thick with tension. Even Logan, a veteran of complicated situations, felt a little uncomfortable. The awkward silence was broken by a knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Scott called out, grateful for the interruption. Jean also stood and opened the door. Standing outside was the tall and powerfully built Pyotr Rasputin, Colossus. Seeing Pyotr enter, Scott glared at Logan, who was still seated. You're still here? I have work to do. Anyone who doesn't belong here should please leave. Wolverine curled his lip and was about to push himself up when a new voice drifted from the doorway. Uncle Wolf should stay put for now. It will save us the trouble of looking for him later. Amon was leaning against the door frame, a teasing glint in his eye. Summers, you should be careful. A man like Logan has a way of finding cracks in even the strongest foundations. His appeal to women is a force of nature. Scott frowned but still managed a curt reply. Thanks, but Jean would never fall for an unemployed, aimless drifter like him. Chapter 45, 45. Since he wasn't being kicked out, Wolverine settled back into his chair, swapping one leg over the other. He looked at Amon with genuine curiosity. So, kid, why did you and Ilyana come looking for us? Amon answered lightly, I think you're getting a little too comfortable here, Uncle Wolf. So, I found you a job. Wolverine grunted, intrigued. Oh yeah? What kind of job? He had plenty of free time at the school, the X-Men weren't exactly busy every single day. Amon replied, I've started a new company in the superhero business. I've already spoken with Professor Xavier, and he has agreed to let the X-Men join. This is an opportunity to reshape the public's perception of mutants, to move beyond the stereotype that mutants are a threat. This will be far more effective than your current activities as the X-Men. Scott was visibly surprised. The professor actually agreed? It seems this idea of a superhero company might really have merit. The future of mutant kind was a constant worry for everyone at the Academy. If there was a viable plan to improve their situation, Scott was more than willing to give it a try. Pyotr, who had been silent until now, spoke up. I've already promised Amon I would be a part of his company. What do you all think? As Amon's close friend, Piotr had readily agreed to the plan as soon as Amon had told him about it. Jean Grey and Scott exchanged a look, and a silent understanding passed between them. Scott nodded. Since the professor has given his approval, Jean and I are in. I just wonder what a certain idle person thinks. Scott couldn't resist another jab at the man he saw as a rival for his girlfriend's affections. Wolverine retorted, "There's nothing at this school that needs my help right now. I'm more curious what some people are so busy with all day. As for joining your company, Amon, count me in. I'm getting bored just sitting around here anyway." Jean then interrupted. "Ororo is currently in Africa with her boyfriend, T'Challa. We'll have to wait until she returns to see if she wants to join." Amon clapped his hands together, a smile spreading across his face. "Excellent. Since everyone agrees, let's get ready. We'll head to New York this afternoon to discuss the specifics with our partner, Tony Stark." "Iron Man?" Scott asked. "The guy who's been all over the news, the one they're calling the first point of contact with aliens." Amon nodded. "The company was established in partnership with him. We can leverage his fame to launch our own operations. He's also surprisingly dedicated to this sort of thing, which should make the process smoother." The citizens of New York were treated to a shock today. It wasn't another alien attack, but the sudden, impossible appearance of a new skyscraper, one that towered even over Stark Tower. No one knew what had happened to the buildings that had previously occupied that space, nor did they have any idea how or when this new edifice was constructed. It was simply there. Fully built, fully decorated, with people already moving about inside. Emblazoned on its high-tech facade were massive, glowing letters that read, "Marvel." This was the headquarters Amon had prepared for his superhero company. It wasn't stolen from another timeline, but a genuine miracle. Over the years, Amon's clones had fulfilled countless wishes in war-torn regions like Afghanistan and Sokovia. Many of those wishes were for simple things like food and shelter. In granting them, Amon had accumulated a vast reserve of miraculous power. Conjuring a single building was now a trivial matter for him. The employees inside were, of course, Amon's tireless clones. "Amon, Amon. How did you do this?" Ilyana asked, tugging on the corner of his coat. "When I passed by here yesterday, this was just a block of small factories. Now there's this massive building. Is this another one of your historical projections?" Amon adjusted his monocle, his tone casual. "It's simple. A minor miracle is all it takes. And Ilyana, you're not using your brain. Didn't I tell you that historical projections can only bring forth things that have actually existed? Have you ever seen a building like this before?" "Just like this," Amon said, casually reaching into the air. A figure instantly familiar to Ilyana appeared in his hand, a perfect replica of herself, though its eyes were empty and lifeless. "See? Is this something that truly existed?" He tapped the head of the Ilyana projection. "A good start. Hey, stop that! What if you make me look stupid?" Ilyana swatted his hand away before he could pat the projection again. She reached out, touching the replica's arm. "It's exactly the same. I want to learn this. Demonstrate it a few more times so I can record the ability," she demanded, shaking the key-shaped necklace hanging from her neck. The necklace was a powerful magical item, capable of recording and replicating abilities. "Later. Your teammates are here." Amon looked up, and Ilyana followed his gaze. A sleek, high-tech jet was descending from the sky. It was one of Beast's designs, capable of flying over a major metropolis without triggering a single alert. The X-jet landed gracefully on the building's rooftop helipad. Wolverine, a cigar clenched between his teeth, was the first to disembark. He took in the panoramic view, a low whistle escaping his lips. "This place is even more spectacular than Stark Tower. Kid, you're secretly a tycoon." Jean was equally stunned. When did such an iconic building appear in New York? Piotr added, Amon, you opened a company this big and didn't tell me. The top floors were dedicated to rest and recreation. The group settled onto plush sofas by a semi-open-air swimming pool, waiting for Tony Stark to arrive. He was, predictably, late. Didn't we agree to meet at 3? Scott said, his voice edged with impatience. It's already 10 past. Where is Tony Stark? Wolverine, ever ready to needle Scott, grunted, young people. No patience. Amon laughed. Who knows? Perhaps he's already here, just too timid to come in, and is observing us from a distance. Ignoring Amon's remark, Wolverine's gaze roamed the area before landing on a lavishly stocked wine cabinet. A few particular bottles caught his eye. Now what kind of wine is that? He muttered, his interest piqued. Chapter 46, 46. As a seasoned connoisseur of spirits, Wolverine's eyes immediately locked onto the unique collection of bottles. He picked one up, its glass dark and aged, and held it out to Amon. All right, kid. What's the story with this one? Hearing Wolverine's question, Amon adjusted his monocle, a faint smile on his lips. That is a Moët and Chandon champagne, a treasure from Napoleon's personal cellar. It's older than you are, Logan. The lavish arrangements had all been prepared by Amon's clones. The monocle was more a habit than a necessity. He could communicate with his network of clones and access information with or without it. Most of the wine had been acquired from various cellars around the world, but some, like the bottle in Wolverine's hand, were direct historical projections, plucked from Napoleon's own dining table by a clone traveling through a moment in time. Older than me, hey? I don't even know how long I've lived, Wolverine grumbled. With a flick of his wrist, 6 adamantium claws extended. He cleanly sliced the top off the bottle and took a long, appreciative swallow. Ah, you know what? It's damn good. As Wolverine began to investigate the rest of the wine cabinet, the water in the infinity pool rippled violently. A suit of red and gold armor crashed down from the sky, landing in a perfect 3-point stance. The armor peeled away from Tony Stark, then reformed into a tall, slender man who stood attentively at his side, Jarvis in his new humanoid form. Tony, a man who believed in being prepared, had brought his most reliable backup for the meeting. Though he was late, Tony strode forward with unshakable confidence. Excellent. You're all on time. Glad you didn't keep me waiting. He surveyed the opulent rooftop, nodding with satisfaction. The building is well designed. I love it here. In truth, Tony had arrived much earlier. He had raced over the moment Jarvis informed him that a skyscraper taller than his own had materialized overnight in New York. He spent a considerable amount of time circling the structure, utterly baffled as to how such a massive building could have been erected without anyone noticing. Tony turned to Amon. Did you hire some kind of impossible construction crew? The kind that works at light speed? I might need their number for the Manhattan restoration project. You could try, Amon replied enigmatically. Tony was about to press the point when he caught sight of Wolverine raiding the bar. Oh, Wolverine, what are you doing? Don't hog all the vintage stock. You're acting like you've never had a good drink before. TCH, Wolverine scoffed. He downed the contents of the bottle in one go and tossed the empty vessel to Tony. Here. Since you like it so much. Tony caught the bottle on instinct, and then he froze. There was something familiar about it. This particular vintage should have been long out of production. He had taken the last known bottle with him to Afghanistan, but it had been lost during the terrorist attack. Shaking off the strange feeling, he placed the bottle on a nearby table and turned his attention to the X-Men. All right, who's in charge of you lot? Scott Summers stepped forward, extending a hand. Cyclops. Scott Summers. Mr. Stark, I'm the leader of the X-Men. Tony ignored the outstretched hand. I never shake hands with anyone. Scott's face tightened. He awkwardly retracted his hand and used it to adjust his ruby quartz sunglasses. Just as charming as the wolf, he muttered, lumping Tony and Wolverine into the same irritating category in his mind. Tony's gaze moved to Colossus and Jean. Seeing Tony looking at him, Pyotr said, "Colossus." "Pyotr Rasputin." "Rasputin," Tony repeated, the name clicking. That irksome girl and the mysterious young man had the same surname. "What's your relation to those two?" he asked curiously. Pyotr paused for a moment before understanding dawned. "You mean Amon and Ilyana? I'm their brother." "I see," Tony nodded, turning his attention to the last person. "And you, beautiful lady? What's your name? You look familiar. Perhaps we could have a drink later and discuss it." Scott answered for her, stepping slightly in front of Jean. "She's Jean Grey, my girlfriend. Besides being an X-Man, she's a doctor of genetics and psychology. You've probably seen her at an academic symposium." He was fiercely protective, his sensitivity heightened by Wolverine's presence and Tony Stark's notorious reputation as a playboy. "Ha, a little protective, are we?" Tony teased. Jean shot Scott a look. He'd been like this ever since Logan arrived at the academy. Being a powerful telepath, she could feel his insecurity and jealousy rolling off him in waves. She placed a calming hand on his shoulder. "It's all right, Scott. Are you that worried about me?" She then turned to Tony, her smile polite but firm. "My code name is Phoenix, but you can call me Jean. I gave a lecture on mutant genetics recently that got some press. Perhaps you saw a report on that." "Maybe. I didn't really pay attention to mutant affairs before," Tony replied indifferently. Wolverine felt pointedly ignored, but he had no interest in introducing himself to a man anyway. Scott, however, was more than happy to do it for him. "That drunk is Logan. Calls himself Wolverine. Don't mind him, he's just freeloading." Logan didn't even react, too absorbed in his exploration of the wine collection. A shimmer of light appeared by the pool, and a massive red and blue robot materialized. Compared to Optimus Prime's immense scale, the open-air pool looked like a large puddle. "I am Optimus Prime. I am here representing the Autobots," at Tony's invitation. Klein emerged from behind Optimus, offering a polite greeting. "Hello, everyone. I'm Klein, the president of this company, though I'm really just an administrator. Amon is the true proprietor. Optimus Prime is a bit too large for the elevator, so he contacted me, and I teleported him up. Amon, his ability is similar to yours." Pyotr exclaimed from his seat next to Amon. "I feel it as well," Amon nodded in agreement. Klein was of average height, his features pleasant but not striking, with a scholarly air about him. He was dressed in a formal suit and top hat, giving him a very approachable demeanor. After the introductions were complete, Amon clapped his hands, drawing everyone's attention. "Now that almost everyone is here, allow me to explain the unique features of our company. I will skip the parts that resemble any ordinary corporation. First, our staff has already been recruited. Should you wish to hire new people, simply inform the current employees they are being let go. They will comply without issue. Second, the company has an admissions department. It is responsible for recruiting and training individuals with superpowers. This will be a critical function. Finally, we have a department dedicated to chronicling the experiences of you heroes. This will also serve as a form of protection for our members. I would advise against replacing the employees in that department. They are very difficult to find." Chapter 47, 47. Finally, Amon continued, "Our company has a very special department, the Mutant Power Recycling Department. I established this company partly for the sake of mutants. This department can, with their consent, remove their abilities. For most low-level mutants, their powers are not particularly useful and often come with negative side effects, such as physical deformities. They can come to our company to sell their abilities. Of course, they can also choose to only remove the negative aspects. The choice is entirely up to them. As Amon finished, every eye in the room widened, except for Klein's and Ilyanav's. Optimus Prime, of course, didn't count, as he wasn't human. Ilyana had long grown accustomed to Amon's strange and wonderful abilities. This sort of thing no longer surprised her. You can eliminate mutant abilities. Scott shot to his feet, unable to remain seated. Does the professor know about this? The ability to remove a mutant's powers was world-shaking, something that could alter the very foundation of their existence. Calm yourself, Summers. Sit down, Amon said, his voice soothing yet firm. We are only taking away their abilities, not destroying them. Think of it like a transaction. After the sale, the commodity still exists, it has simply changed hands. It is the same with mutant abilities. They just end up with someone who needs them more. Amon's words were laced with a strange, convincing power. Scott's agitation subsided, and he slowly sat back down. Amon added, "Do not replace the people in this department. The work is complex. Others would not be able to handle it. Now, you can direct any further questions to Klein, he will take care of the administrative details." Tony jumped in. "When does this superhero guild business officially launch? I've got a killer idea for the rollout." "Ask her," Amon said, jerking a thumb toward Ilyana, who was currently enjoying a shoulder massage from her transformed motorcycle, Artemis. At the mention of her name, Ilyana signaled for Artemis to stop and sat up, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Haha, Vice President, your timing is perfect. I also have a brilliant plan. Let's implement it immediately." Tony's confident smile faltered. He had a sinking feeling that her idea of a brilliant plan was not going to align with his own. Tony Stark held another press conference, and once again, the world's media was thrown into a frenzy. Iron Man, along with a mysterious new partner, had formed a company dedicated to the theme of superheroes. At the press conference, Tony boisterously declared the formation of a massive superhero collective, bringing together the X-Men and the alien Autobots. He announced that anyone who dreamed of becoming a superhero could now apply at the Marvel building for an interview. Those who passed would receive professional training to become real-life heroes. "Who is the superhero?" "My friend," Tony said, pointing a finger directly at the camera with infectious enthusiasm, "you are the real superhero." Crash! At SHIELD headquarters, another electronic monitor shattered. An enraged Nick Fury had hurled his coffee mug at the screen. "Sir, that is the fifth screen you have broken in the past 2 weeks," Agent Maria Hill stated dryly, unfazed. "Damn it! Then go apply for more funding. The base's equipment needs an upgrade anyway." Fury snapped. Hill remained silent, knowing better than to argue. "What in the world is Stark trying to do?" Fury raged. "Does he want to turn the world into a circus? He's actually working with mutants. And what's the deal with this Marvel company? Who are they, and how did they get into bed with Tony Stark?" Facing her boss's tirade, Hill responded with practiced efficiency. "The Marvel company building appeared 2 years ago. Their influence spans the globe. The New York branch was the first to appear and is presumed to be their headquarters. They are a deeply mysterious organization, no one knows how they developed so quickly. It's as if they materialized overnight. Our agents have investigated, but have come up with nothing. All we know is that their public-facing leader is a young man named Klein Moretti." Hill had already reviewed S.H.I.E.L.D.'s file on the organization in anticipation of Fury's questions. "Send in Black Widow. I want to know everything about this Marvel group. And notify the White House. I need a secure conference." "Yes, sir," Hill replied, turning to carry out his orders. A short time later, Nick Fury stood in a dark, secure conference room, surrounded by multiple large screens. He activated the system, and one by one, the faces of high-ranking government officials appeared. Fury, what's the reason for this sudden meeting? We have a lot on our plates, Fury. We don't have time to waste. The voices, tinged with annoyance, came from the various screens. These were his liaisons in the White House. Fury's face, already dark, grew darker still. He could clearly see that one of the officials, a man who had just complained about being busy, was broadcasting from a sun-drenched beach, a tropical drink in his hand. "Gentlemen," Fury began, his voice tight, "I'd like to ask how you all do your jobs. How did a problem of this magnitude develop right under your noses?" The official on the beach laughed. "Our esteemed director of SHIELD seems confused. I've been saying for a long time we should replace him. What's the problem?" "I agree. No problem here." Similar responses echoed from the other screens. Fury's one eye widened in disbelief. "Are you people not watching the news? How can you not know about the massive incident Tony Stark just created? How did you approve a company like Marvel? What's the issue? Isn't this a good thing?" one official said with a smile, adjusting the monocle on his eye. "Just think of it, making superhero a profession will greatly promote social progress. How fascinating!" "Indeed," said another, also raising a monocle to his eye. "Cooperating with mutants could help ease the current tensions between humans and mutants and allow for better integration into society." Fury couldn't believe what he was hearing. These were the same men who had always been vehemently anti-superhero and had constantly sought ways to suppress mutants. Had Stark bought them off? Or were they being secretly threatened? He couldn't find a logical explanation and could only attribute this bizarre reversal to the mysterious Marvel organization and Tony's bottomless pockets. "You weren't singing this tune before," Fury scoffed. This sentence seemed to trigger a new line of attack. One of the officials immediately shot back, his voice dripping with condescension. "The past is the past, Fury. The present is the present. You shouldn't use the past to judge the present. If you can't even grasp that simple concept, I will have no choice but to report this to my superiors and recommend they find someone a little more forward-thinking to be the director of SHIELD." Chapter 48, 48. Nick Fury stared at the now blank screens, his one good eye filled with a dead, weary light. He didn't say a word. "Fury, do your job and don't interfere with our arrangements," an elderly official's voice had warned just before the feed cut out. "Then this meeting is over," Fury had snapped, ending the conference before they could. "How rude," someone had muttered from the other side, a final, parting shot before the screens went completely dark. "A bunch of profit-seeking politicians," Fury growled into the empty room. After venting his frustration, he walked out and addressed his lieutenant. "Hill, put in a requisition for more funds. The conference room is broken." "Hey, are you the president of this guild or am I?" Ilyana demanded, her voice sharp with frustration. "You have to understand, I fought Amon for this position. Without me, you wouldn't even be the vice president. You need to recognize your place." She had proposed a dozen good ideas, but the man with the mustache had shot down every single one, calling her naive. Tony Stark leaned back in his chair, took a leisurely sip of his iced wine, and replied slowly, "Your thinking is that of an immature child." "Oh, that's right, you are a child. I think you should just be the mascot and leave the actual decision-making to me, the adult in the room." Ilyana was not convinced. "This is a superhero guild. Decisions should be made by powerful people with superpowers. Do you even have any? Or do you just hide in that tin can of yours?" Tony smiled, a look of pure disdain on his face. He took another sip of his drink. "Having a brain is also a kind of power, one that's far more useful than just throwing energy blasts around. And as it happens, I am a genius. From my observations, you don't seem to possess that particular ability." Ilyana's brow furrowed. This man's arrogance was even worse than Amon's. No wonder they had decided to work together, they were two of a kind. All right, kid, just follow my instructions for the specific arrangements, Tony said, standing up. I have other things to do, so I won't be playing with you anymore. He turned and left the office. Watching his arrogant back, Ilyana felt a surge of anger. Then, a wicked idea sparked in her mind. Grasping the key-shaped necklace on her chest, she activated an ability she had recently recorded from Amon. Tony walked toward the company's exit and stopped at the top of the stairs. A bad memory surfaced, and he shook his head. This isn't that weird place. And I'm half the owner here. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Tony's heart began to pound. 4 steps, 5, 6. He was still no closer to the bottom of the 3-step staircase. Damn it, who's messing with me now, he cursed under his breath. Well, isn't it our great genius, a voice called out. Having trouble with the stairs again? Why don't you use that clever brain of yours to think of a solution? It should be easy. Ilyana sauntered past him, deliberately slowing her pace so he could clearly see her effortless descent. Then, with a flicker, she vanished. Damn it, petty woman! Tony muttered. He knew she was getting back at him for his earlier comments. After 17 long, frustrating minutes, he finally made it down the strange, looping stairs. He tapped the bracelet on his wrist, and a stream of data converged into the form of Jarvis. Sir, you summoned me? Jarvis asked. Tony frowned. Jarvis, did you receive any signals from me in the last 20 minutes? Jarvis shook his head. No, sir. Aside from this summons, the last message I received was this morning when you asked me to inform Ms. Potts of your departure. I have received nothing since. Tony nodded grimly. So, even electromagnetic waves can't get out of that field. His mind was already working on a way to counteract the ability. With Jarvis's help, he quickly returned to his private research facility outside New York, which he had converted into his personal base. He had intended to discuss company arrangements with Optimus Prime, having persuaded the Autobots to join Marvel to better integrate them into human society. But as he arrived at the entrance and looked at the long flight of stairs leading down into the main lab, he gave up. He was tired and needed a rest. Jarvis, Tony called out, get a team in here to remove all the stairs in this facility. They're an obstruction. Yes, sir, Jarvis replied. Though he didn't understand the reason, he immediately began to carry out the order. You are the real superhero. Leon shot up from his sofa, his heart pounding with excitement. He was going to be a superhero. Mr. Starr, he said to the voice in his head, I'm going to be a superhero. What do you think? The voice of Mr. Starr, one of Amon's clones, replied simply, as you wish. The day Leon and Agent Coulson had investigated the preaching clone, Amon had seen something special in the young man. He had split off a part of his consciousness, creating the persona of Mr. Starr, and parasitically attached it to Leon, becoming a sort of guide. This shallow-level parasitism caused no harm, though it could subtly influence the host's habits. It was a state that could be ended at any time, with the host returning to normal, albeit with a small fraction of their lifespan stolen. It was an advanced application of theft, stealing a portion of someone's life and identity. Leon was a passionate young man who had always dreamed of being a hero like Captain America. He had joined SHIELD, drawn by its mission to protect the world. But the reality of being an agent was a disappointment. Not everyone got to save the world. Low-level agents like him were stuck with minor investigative tasks and were constantly under the thumb of Nick Fury. He had lost his passion for the job, but the nature of SHIELD made it impossible to just quit. Then, on a mission with Coulson, he met Mr. Starr. Suddenly, Leon felt like a protagonist again. He had even awakened a cool ability, which Mr. Starr had named World Harmony. This power allowed him to manipulate luck and misfortune, to gather the bad luck in an area and focus it on a target, or to redistribute good luck to create incredible effects. Mr. Star had told him he was drawn by this ability to control luck, and that he was there to help him grow. This is the destiny of a protagonist, Leon had thought at the time. So, the next time Nick Fury assigned him a menial task, he flatly refused. He had never liked that man anyway. Chapter 49, 49. It was, however, a difficult time for Agent Coulson. When Leon's world harmony ability awakened, it threw the ambient fortune and misfortune in the area into chaos. The unlucky Coulson was inadvertently caught in the crossfire, and for days afterward, he was plagued by a string of incredibly bad luck. Leon pulled out his cell phone and dialed a number he had come to despise. The moment the call connected, before the person on the other end could speak, Leon announced, "Hey, Fury, I'm going to be a superhero. You can find someone else to be your agent. I quit." Without waiting for a response, Leon hung up. On the other end of the line, Nick Fury was bewildered. Is Leon having another episode? Is he mentally unstable? Ever since the young agent had brazenly insulted him, Fury had remembered him. He never expected the kid to just up and quit. He called for his adjutant. "Hill, have someone check on an agent named Leon Jones. I suspect there's something wrong with him." Maria Hill pulled up Leon's file. Leon Jones, Level 4 Agent, 1 year of service with SHIELD. Initially an enthusiastic recruit, he had become progressively more passive. Following a mission with Agent Coulson 2 weeks ago, he had been on extended leave. The file also noted a history of insubordination toward the director. Hill suppressed a smile, careful not to let Fury notice. She had heard about the incident. The nickname Leon had given Fury Black-Boiled Egg was surprisingly apt. She glanced at Fury, whose expression was a mask of stern confusion. At that moment, the headquarters of Marvel was a hive of activity. Reporters swarmed the entrance, eager for a scoop. Curious onlookers gathered, drawn by the spectacle. A crowd of mutants with physical deformities waited patiently, hoping to have their abilities removed. Only a small fraction of the crowd was there for the real purpose, to become superheroes. Leon stepped out of a taxi and was about to pay when the driver turned around with a massive grin. "Kid, it's your lucky day. I just won the lottery. I'm in such a great mood, this ride's on me. Have fun." Leon smiled back. "Sounds like you're the lucky one, sir. This is how it should be for a protagonist," he thought. On the way over, Leon had felt the driver was a good person, so he had shifted some of the ambient luck, splitting it between the driver and himself. He hadn't expected it to result in a lottery win. He looked up at the towering, impressive building. "This is where I'm meant to shine," he declared to himself. He walked toward the entrance, and as if by magic, a path cleared for him. He entered the admissions department of Marvel without any trouble. As he walked through the halls, he felt a profound sense of belonging, as if he had finally come home. Every staff member he passed greeted him with a warm, welcoming smile. "I've finally found the right place," he said to himself, his heart soaring. When he reached the interview area, there was no need to submit a resume. He just had to find a spot in line and wait his turn. He had barely sat down when the person ahead of him was called in and then quickly came out. Just like that, it was his turn. He straightened his clothes and walked into the interview room with an air of unshakable confidence. The room was constructed of translucent glass, allowing a vague view of the inside, but the soundproofing was perfect. The moment Leon stepped inside, the noisy chatter of the waiting area vanished. 4 interviewers sat at a long table. 2 were company employees in formal suits, both wearing monocles, seated at either end. In the middle were the red-haired Jean Grey and the metallic giant, Colossus. "Hey, you guys look awesome." Leon greeted them with an easy familiarity. Full of spirit, the interviewer on the far left noted. My name is Leon Jones, Leon began. I used to be a secret agent, but that job wasn't for me. I happened to see your company on TV, so I came to apply. Jean Grey asked, You certainly have energy. Is there anything different about you, something that makes you stand out? Leon stroked his chin thoughtfully. You mean superpowers? Well, I'm very lucky. I can control luck and misfortune. Colossus leaned forward, intrigued. That's a very special ability. Can you demonstrate it for us? Do you have any props? Something like dice? Leon asked, miming the shape with his fingers. Just as Piotr was about to say no, the interviewer to his left produced a set of dice as if from nowhere. I have some. He handed them to Colossus, gesturing for him to test the candidate. Piotr juggled the 6 dice in his massive hand. What do you want to do? Leon glanced at them. Throw them all. I say they will all land on 6. Very confident, Piotr rumbled. He tossed the dice onto the table. They bounced and tumbled, one by one settling with the number 6 facing up. When the last die came to a stop, all 6 showed a 6. That's quite impressive, Piotr admitted. He threw them again. And again. Each time, the result was the same. All right, he said, change the number. 5, Leon said confidently, holding up an open palm. All 5s. Piotr threw the dice again. As predicted, all 6 landed on 5. Incredible, Jean and Piotr said in unison. Okay, you've passed, Jean said. Go to the room in the back and register your information. You can report for superhero training in 1 week. We will contact you with the details. That was easy, Leon muttered to himself as he walked toward the back room. At that exact moment, a man was walking down the street outside. He heard a clatter and looked down to see his keys had fallen. Phew, lucky they didn't fall into the sewer, he thought, relieved to see them resting on the grate of a manhole cover. He bent down to pick them up, but the movement dislodged his cell phone from his pocket. It slipped out, fell through a gap in the grate, and disappeared into the darkness below with a faint splash. To make matters worse, the impact vibrated the grate just enough to knock the keys loose, and they too fell into the sewer. No, the man cried, dropping to his knees and peering into the gloom, trying to figure out how to retrieve his belongings. Just then, a street-sweeping truck rumbled past, dousing the unfortunate man with a spray of filthy water. Damn it! Am I cursed? Why am I so unlucky today? He yelled at the sky. The total amount of luck and misfortune in the world is conserved. When some are lucky, others must, by necessity, be unlucky. This was the law of world harmony. In Tony's suburban base, Tony Stark lay shirtless on an operating table, the pale blue light of the arc reactor glowing in his chest. Ratchet, the Autobot medic, stood over him, a familiar red glove covering his massive hand. Tony, this fire glove is truly fascinating, Ratchet said. It can even steal abstract concepts like ideas. But you know, I believe I could remove the shrapnel from your chest without this device. I am a professional. This is safer, Tony replied from the table. Your hands are a little too big for this kind of delicate work. Ratchet nodded. Very well. I am quite proficient with this tool now. Are you ready? Anytime you are, Doc. Let's get this over with. Chapter 50, 50. Then I shall begin, Ratchet announced, his voice a deep rumble. His palm, larger than half of Tony's torso, began to rotate slowly counterclockwise over the glowing arc reactor. A small, dark shard of metal materialized in his massive hand. Success! Now that's a neat trick, Tony exclaimed from the operating table, feeling no pain at all. No pain, all gain. Go ahead, get them all out at once. Understood, Ratchet replied. He continued the motion, and one by one, pieces of shrapnel were drawn from Tony's chest and deposited into a glass container. After the last piece was removed, a scanner extended from Ratchet's wrist, and he ran it over Tony's chest. "Tony, all the shrapnel has been removed," the Autobot medic reported. "However, I am detecting mild palladium poisoning. The reactor must be removed from your chest as soon as possible, or its use significantly reduced." As he spoke, Ratchet took off the fire glove and handed it back to Tony. The glove flowed like liquid metal, transforming back into a sleek watch on Tony's wrist. "Then let's do it now," Tony said. "Help me take out the reactor and patch up this gaping hole. I'm finally done having a light bulb in my chest." Ratchet picked up a tiny, human-sized scalpel in his giant metal hand and slowly brought it toward Tony's chest. "That's a terrifying sense of scale you've got there," Tony complained, then a thought struck him. "Wait, did you give me any anesthesia?" Ratchet paused, his massive head tilting. "Haha," he chuckled sheepishly. "I forgot." Tony's face was a mask of disbelief. "I'm different from you, Doc. My body isn't made of metal. If you perform surgery on me without anesthesia, I will die." "I will be more attentive," Ratchet said, his tone returning to one of serious professionalism. Peter Parker woke in a rush. Today was the day Midtown High was visiting Oscorp Labs, a trip he had been looking forward to for weeks. After grabbing a piece of toast from Aunt May, he slung his backpack and camera over his shoulder and hurried out the door. As soon as he stepped outside, he saw her waiting for him at the corner. The girl, with her beautiful blonde hair and a smile that radiated youthful energy, was his childhood best friend, Gwen Stacy. When Gwen saw him, she raised her hand and waved. "Peter, over here." "Coming," he called back, jogging over to her. He scratched the back of his head sheepishly. "Gwen. Hey. Sorry I'm late." Gwen just laughed, unbothered by his tardiness, and handed him a thermos. "I figured. You probably ran out the door without eating again." "Hee, I brought you some hot chocolate." Peter took the thermos with a grateful, goofy smile. "Gwen, you're the best." "Well, you still have to take good pictures of me today," she teased. "You can't do that if you're weak from hunger. Come on. If we miss the school bus, we'll have to get a ride in my dad's police car." Gwen hooked her arm through his, and they started walking toward the school. At Oscorp's biology laboratory, the students of Midtown High moved from one exhibit to the next, guided by a lab tour guide. They were currently in the arachnid section, which displayed countless species of spiders from around the globe, including some that had been genetically modified or subjected to radiation experiments. Gwen peered into a glass enclosure. "Peter, what kind of spiders are these?" she asked curiously. Peter, who had been framing a shot with his camera, lowered it and looked at the display case. "The biggest one is a tarantula. You can see its brown fur and powerful chelicerae. It's very dangerous and venomous." "What about this one?" Gwen asked, pointing to a spider with a striking three-colored pattern. Peter studied it for a moment. "That looks like a tricolor wolf spider. Its most distinctive feature is its coloration. See the fine hairs? Black, white, and yellow." Gwen scanned the display cases, trying to find a spider that Peter couldn't identify. "This one. What about this one?" Peter pushed his glasses up his nose. "That's the famous black widow. It's highly venomous, and you can see the red hourglass-shaped marking on its abdomen." The teacher overseeing the tour walked over, a pleased smile on his face. "Parker's explanations are spot on. He seems to have a real passion for biology. There are fewer and fewer students like him who focus on genuine knowledge these days." "I'm not very strong, so I usually just read books," Peter said, scratching his head again. After a sigh, the teacher led the two to another display case. "I guarantee you don't know these spiders, Parker," he said with a grin. "Why?" Gwen asked. Are they particularly special? Peter looked at the spiders inside and shook his head. I don't recognize any of these. They must be the results of Oscorp's own experiments. The teacher smiled. Very clever, Parker. The spiders in this section have all been either genetically modified or subjected to radiation. They are vastly different from their original species. It's perfectly normal that you can't identify them. Gwen leaned closer, fascinated. The spiders here were beautiful, some even faintly glowing. She turned to Peter. Peter, look how pretty they are. Come take some pictures of me with them. Okay. Peter stepped back, found the perfect angle, and directed her. Gwen, move a little to the right. Perfect. Like this? Gwen asked, striking a pose. Slightly bend your body, yes, that's it. Don't move. After a series of clicks from his camera, Peter checked the photos. Okay, Gwen, come take a look, he said with a smile. Ouch. Gwen started to walk over, then suddenly cried out, her hand flying to the back of her neck. She pulled something away and looked down at her hand. It was a spider. Peter rushed to her side, his voice filled with concern. What's wrong, Gwen? Are you okay? Gwen held out the now dead spider. I think it bit me, she said nervously. Peter, is it poisonous? Peter took the spider and examined it closely, then looked at the bite mark on the back of her neck, where a strand of silk was still stuck. This looks like one of the modified spiders. I don't know if it's venomous. I'll go ask someone in charge. They'll know for sure. Just as Peter was about to find a staff member, the teacher heard the commotion and hurried over. What happened? He asked, his voice tight with anxiety. He was responsible for these students. Sir, Gwen was bitten by a spider, Peter explained. The teacher's voice rose in pitch. Bitten? What kind of spider? Is it venomous? I'm not sure. It was one of the experimental ones. Peter handed the dead spider to the teacher. The teacher visibly relaxed, wiping a bead of sweat from his forehead. Gwen Stacy's father was the commissioner of the New York Police Department. He regained his composure. It's probably not venomous. I've been told that all the experimental spiders Oscorp has on display are non-venomous. They were afraid of what might happen if the venomous ones were modified, so they don't display them here. Hearing this, Peter also felt a wave of relief. Still, Mr. Bell, he said, we should take Gwen to the lab staff. As you know, spiders that have been experimented on could have unforeseen hazards. Chapter 51, 51. It's nothing serious, the medic at Oscorp Labs concluded after examining the bite on Gwen's neck. The spider isn't poisonous. Just apply an ice pack and it'll be fine. If you're still worried, I can give you a tetanus shot. Peter Parker and Mr. Bell both let out a collective sigh of relief. Let's get the tetanus shot, just in case, Peter said. Yeah, Gwen agreed, nodding. In moments like this, Peter was always very reliable. On the way out of the lab, Peter noticed Gwen seemed distracted. Gwen, are you sure you're okay? He asked with concern. Gwen snapped back to reality, a little embarrassed. I'm just feeling a little hungry, she admitted. Hungry? Let's go grab some burgers, Peter suggested. I remember there's a great burger joint near here. Even Iron Man loves their cheeseburgers. Cheeseburgers? Yes. The hunger in her stomach was growing more intense by the second, and Gwen readily agreed. Buzz. A strange sensation vibrated in Gwen's head, accompanied by a strong feeling of unease. On pure instinct, she reached out and pulled Peter, who was trying to get his bearings. With a powerful tug, she yanked him back toward her. Hey, what was that for? Peter stumbled, nearly falling into her arms. Crash! A clay flower pot plummeted from a window above, shattering on the exact spot where Peter had been standing just a moment before. Peter's eyes went wide. "Gwen, you saved me. It would have landed right on my head." Gwen was just as surprised. She hadn't seen the flower pot fall, she had just acted on a gut feeling. "But Gwen," Peter said, rubbing his shoulder, "you're so strong. I feel like my arm is going to fall off." "Hey!" Gwen looked at her hands, confused. She hadn't felt like she had used much force at all. Although Peter was thin and a frequent target for school bullies, he had never been so easily manhandled by a girl much smaller than him. Gwen's strength in that moment felt greater than that of Flash Thompson, the school's star quarterback. The two didn't dwell on the incident. After cleaning up the broken pot shards, Peter led Gwen to the burger shop. Inside, Gwen devoured the last bite of her cheeseburger and immediately ordered 2 more. Peter stared at his own half-eaten burger, his eye twitching slightly. Gwen had already finished 6 and was now starting on her 7th. Gwen noticed his expression and asked cautiously, "Peter, why don't I pay? I know you're a little broke." Peter shook his head, feigning indifference. "It's fine. I have enough for this. I promised to treat you." "But Gwen, where did you get this sudden appetite?" At that moment, Gwen finished another burger, her face flushing slightly. "I don't know. I just feel so hungry, like I can't stop eating." "Could it be from the shock of the spider bite?" Peter speculated. "No way," Gwen retorted, her pride stung. "It was just a little spider. I'm not that timid." "That's weird," Peter mumbled, still pondering the mystery. The next morning, Gwen woke up and stretched. A ripping sound echoed in her quiet room as her pajama top tore clean across the back. "That's strange," she thought. "The quality can't be that bad, can it?" After changing, she went to the mirror to wash her face. Splat! With a gentle squeeze, a glob of toothpaste shot out and hit the mirror. "How weird," she muttered. Then she discovered something even stranger. "Hey, why do these seem bigger?" she wondered aloud, poking at her chest. They had never been this prominent before. 5 minutes later, her bedroom was a disaster zone. The faucet had been ripped from the pipe and was now hastily plugged with a towel. The bathroom doorknob was still clutched in her hand, torn from the door she had accidentally pulled off its hinges. Her clothes were in tatters. "What is happening to me? Have I become a monster?" Gwen panicked, not understanding the changes racking her body. Not only was her strength amplified, but her hands and feet seemed to be perpetually sticky. A corner of her bedsheet was currently stuck to her foot. Suddenly, a thought struck her. Could I be a mutant? Did my powers just awaken? The more she thought about it, the more it seemed possible. Fear washed over her. Most of what she had ever heard about mutants was negative. While she didn't discriminate, the idea of being one herself was terrifying. She was afraid of what it might mean for her family. "Peter," she whispered. "Yes, Peter is so smart. He'll know what to do." Gwen gently picked up a fresh set of clothes, carefully dressing herself this time. With a final, firm tug, the doorknob came free from her hand. She wanted to walk out the front door, but she was afraid of scaring her parents. After a moment's thought, her eyes drifted to her bedroom window. At the Parker residence, Peter was still sound asleep. He had spent the entire previous day with Gwen, who had been bursting with an inexplicable energy. He had been completely exhausted by the time he got home, while she had still been bouncing off the walls. "Peter! Peter!" A faint voice seemed to call to him from a great distance. "I thought I heard Gwen," he thought dazedly. "Must be a dream. Peter, wake up! It's me, Gwen. Something big has happened." The voice, now accompanied by a persistent tapping sound, finally broke through the fog of sleep. Peter forced his eyes open and looked toward the source of the sound. This time, he was wide awake. A ghostly female figure was clinging to the outside of his window, staring in at him. Ah! Peter screamed, his heart leaping into his throat. Calm down, Peter, it's me, Gwen, the figure said. Gwen. Peter's panic subsided. He could see her clearly now. He rushed over, opened the window, and stared at her in disbelief. Gwen, why are you outside my window? How did you get up this high? Gwen gracefully climbed through the open window into his bedroom. She had been there countless times and was completely at ease. She moved a chair and sat down in front of him, a blush creeping up her cheeks. Peter, I know we're close, but it would probably be better if you put some clothes on. Peter looked down and realized he was only in his underwear. He quickly turned around, grabbed some clothes from his bedside, and dressed himself. Gwen, he asked again, you still haven't told me why you were climbing my building. Well. Gwen hesitated, not knowing how to begin. After a moment, she took a deep breath. Peter, I think I've become a mutant. Peter stroked his chin, then shook his head. A mutant? You? I don't think so. Why not? Gwen asked, confused. Peter gestured dramatically. I've heard that mutants all have green skin and fangs, and look like monsters. Gwen, you're still so beautiful. You don't look anything like a monster. Chapter 52, 52. Gwen beamed when Peter called her beautiful, but she quickly shook her head. Let's be serious, she said. I woke up this morning and my body had completely changed. I'm much stronger, and my hands and feet, they can stick to things. Have I turned into a monster? To demonstrate, Gwen placed her palm flat on the table, concentrated for a moment, and then lifted her hand. The entire table lifted with it, stuck fast to her palm. Peter played along. Wow, Gwen! You're so strong! Gwen rolled her eyes at him. Peter, be serious. Peter scratched his head. I could see you were nervous. I just wanted to lighten the mood. He then adopted a more thoughtful expression. It really is a superpower. Your abilities are very similar to a spider's. Gwen, can you spin webs? Peter. I just have superpowers, I didn't become a spider freak. Gwen shot back, but his playful teasing had worked. She felt her anxiety lessen, and she was no longer so worried. Peter continued, panicking won't solve anything, Gwen. It will only make things worse. We need to calmly analyze the situation. I have a feeling your new abilities might be related to that spider from yesterday. The spider? That seems likely, Gwen admitted. Peter, can you check the wound on the back of my neck for me? She turned around, lifting her blonde hair so Peter could get a clear view. Peter leaned in. The bite mark that had been so obvious yesterday was completely gone, without even a scar remaining. That's strange, he said, confused. The wound is gone. Gone? Could it be because of my mutation? Gwen guessed. It's possible. Your physical fitness has improved so much that your healing ability probably has too. By the way, I still have that spider. Let's take a look at it. Peter retrieved a glass bottle from his bookshelf. Inside was the spider that had bitten Gwen. Inside the Marvel building, Leon came off the training floor, grabbing a bottle of water and chugging it down. Piotr walked down beside him, letting out a sigh. Leon, you're worthy of your reputation as a secret agent. You are really good. Leon lowered the water bottle. Piotr, you're the monster. We've been training for hours, and you haven't even broken a sweat. I'm a mutant. My abilities enhance my physical fitness to a certain degree. It's not a fair comparison, Piotr replied. But Leon, your ability is truly incredible. Several times, I was about to land a hit, but you managed to dodge because of some freak accident. That power is practically cheating. Haha, same to you. Leon said modestly, though he couldn't hide the proud curve of his lips. He hadn't even shown the full extent of his abilities yet. The two left the training area together, heading for the lounge. On the way, Pyotr said, "Leon, at your current level, you'll be able to become a full member of our team in no time. I feel like I don't even need to train anymore. I could take on the role right now," Leon said arrogantly, lacing his hands behind his head. Suddenly, his peripheral vision caught something on a nearby wall. It looked like it was covered in mirrors. "Pyotr," he asked, confused, "was there a mirror there before?" "A mirror?" Pyotr followed his gaze and noticed the new addition as well. The two walked closer. Leon examined the ornate silver mirror. The intricate patterns on its frame were unusually captivating, inlaid with various exotic gems. The decorations on either side of the mirror were shaped like a pair of eyes. "Is this an antique?" "It looks quite old," Leon remarked. Out of curiosity, he tapped the mirror's surface with the back of his hand. To his surprise, the surface rippled like water. He quickly retracted his hand, afraid he had damaged it. Words began to form on the mirror's surface. "I am the all-knowing Arides. You may ask me a question." "So it's a magic mirror toy?" "I've wanted to play with one of these since I was a kid," Leon said excitedly. "A question, let me think." He struck a classic thinking pose. "Ah, I know. When did you appear on this wall?" An image materialized on the mirror's surface. The perspective was from high above, looking down, giving the person in the image a strong sense of presence. The figure walked down the corridor and stopped where Leon and Pyotr were now standing. The perspective then lowered to a normal height, revealing a young man wearing a monocle. "So that's the mirror's perspective. I was wondering why it felt so strange," Leon realized. "So it was Amon who put it here," Pyotr whispered. "Amon? Who's that?" Leon asked, tilting his head. "My brother," Pyotr replied. "He's also the owner of this company." Leon's eyes lit up as if he had discovered a new continent. "Pyotr, I didn't realize you had connections. You'll have to look out for me from now on." The image in the mirror wasn't finished. A string of numbers appeared, 832. "Is that the time it was placed here?" "It's quite smart," Leon exclaimed. The scene ended, and the mirror returned to its rippling state, new words appearing. "In accordance with the principle of equivalent exchange, you must now answer a question for me. If you answer incorrectly or lie, you will be punished." "There's a punishment?" They even made the word punishment red. "How interesting. What's the punishment?" "A pay cut." Leon was completely unfazed, still joking with Pyotr. Pyotr, however, knew Amon's handiwork. He had a bad feeling Leon was in trouble. Another line of text appeared on Arides's surface. "Leon Jones. 1 year ago, an accident led you to meet S.H.I.E.L.D's top agent, Black Widow. Attracted by her beauty and skills, you joined SHIELD. Now, tell me, have you ever fantasized about being ravaged by Black Widow in bed?" Leon's eyes widened as he read the words. "How do you know that?" "No, wait, why should I answer a question like that?" "Refusing to answer or lying will result in punishment," another line appeared. "No. And I didn't join SHIELD because of Black Widow. I joined to be a hero." Leon denied it vehemently, trying to save face. "I'm sorry, that is the wrong answer. You lied. There must be something wrong with this mirror. I'm not that kind of person." "Ha, ha ha." Leon forced a laugh, but before he could finish, a bolt of lightning shot out of nowhere and struck him. His last thought before blacking out was, "I clearly redistributed my luck, so why did I still get hit?" Pyotr stared in astonishment at Leon, who was now lying on the ground, his hair smoking. "Amon is playing a dangerous game," he muttered. "I hope he doesn't die." He checked Leon's injuries and saw they were only superficial. The kid would wake up eventually. He's got a pretty tough physique. Picking up the unconscious Leon, Piotr carried him toward the infirmary. The reason Leon was struck by lightning was simple: the entire company, save for a few individuals, was comprised of Amon's clones. They were beyond the influence of Leon's power. He had only succeeded in distributing an illusion of luck. Chapter 53, 53. Beside the silver mirror, Amon's figure materialized from the shadows. He had been observing Arides's performance, and it was satisfactory. Arides was a unique artifact Amon had recently crafted. While this universe lacked a spiritual world in the way he knew it, it was teeming with alternate dimensions, pocket universes, and subspace planes that served a similar purpose: vast, interconnected repositories of information. If these alien spaces were cosmic databases, Arides was the ultimate search engine. It could sift through an incomprehensible amount of data, find the exact information required, and then process and decrypt it, presenting a clear answer. As long as the secret was not protected by power of the highest order or hidden by esoteric means, Arides could find it. There was no price for asking a question, but Amon adhered to the principle of equivalent exchange. Simply answering questions was boring, a mutual interrogation was far more entertaining. As for what questions Arides chose to ask, that was entirely its own prerogative. Arides's power was focused on divination and the uncovering of secrets. Its offensive capabilities were negligible, but its foundational power level was immense, making it an artifact of incredible significance. Sensing Amon's presence, the surface of the mirror rippled, and a new line of text appeared. "Creator, how was my performance?" "Very good," Amon commented. "Very similar to what I remember. Arides is honored to satisfy you." After making a final adjustment to the mirror's position, Amon departed from the Marvel building. Amon strolled through the streets of New York, letting his senses guide him. He had detected a major disturbance in the tapestry of fate, a tremor somewhere in the city. He didn't try to pinpoint its exact location, instead, he simply followed the current, allowing the flow of destiny to lead him to its source. Destiny is an illusory concept, a web of threads invisible to ordinary people and nearly impossible to alter. Only world-changing events, moments that could completely rewrite a person's future, could cause the threads to vibrate with such intensity. If the threads of fate for a normal person's tragedy were like a single stone dropped into a calm pond, this disturbance was a tidal wave, a fundamental shift in the world's narrative that would have massive, far-reaching consequences. The currents of fate led Amon to a small coffee shop. The source was inside. He pushed the door open and walked in. "Gwen, I found out the spider that bit you was a product of radiation mutation," Peter Parker was saying. "It's completely dead, but I'm friends with Harry Osborn. Through Harry, we might be able to get another living specimen from the lab. We could run a test on mice and see if it's what caused the mutation in you." Gwen was listening to Peter, but her mind drifted. She had met Peter's friend Harry a few times and remembered him as a rich kid with a messy private life and a string of girlfriends. "I hope Peter doesn't learn any bad habits from his friends," she thought, staring at his earnest face. "Gwen? Gwen, are you distracted?" Peter waved a hand in front of her face. "Did you hear what I said?" "I'm listening," she said, snapping back to the present. "You said you were going to look for Harry." Peter nodded. "He gets back next week. We'll go find him then. I know an abandoned factory where no one will bother us. We can test your abilities there. If you want to test superpowers, you can come to my company. We have specialized equipment for just that purpose." A shadow fell over their table. Peter looked up to see a well-dressed young man smiling down at them. Sir, can I help you?" Peter asked. Amon smiled. "I overheard you talking about superpowers and was curious. This is my business card. Marvel. You're the head of that new superhero company." After reading the card, Peter Parker was stunned. He had heard about the company, it had become famous almost overnight. Amon continued, "Could you tell me about your experiences? I'm very curious." Under the influence of Amon's extraordinary charm and persuasiveness, neither Peter nor Gwen felt any suspicion. They agreed immediately. Okay. Amon was a master of persuasion, a fundamental aspect of his very being. His power was such that even the most ordinary sentence he spoke felt deeply reasonable, almost impossibly convincing. Amon pulled up a chair and listened intently as the two recounted the events of the past few days. When they finished, Amon nodded thoughtfully. "You suspect it was the spider that caused Ms. Stacy's mutation. May I see it?" Peter took a small glass box from his pocket and handed it to Amon. "Here, but it's dead." "It doesn't matter. Dead or alive, it's all the same," Amon said casually. He took the spider, gave it a cursory glance, and handed it back. "What a magical little creature." He then made a suggestion. "You want to test Ms. Stacy's abilities? I will take you to the Marvel building to test them properly." Peter and Gwen looked at each other, and Gwen nodded. "Okay." Amon led Gwen and Peter to the testing grounds within the Marvel building and handed them over to one of his clones for processing. He then retreated to a private room. Opening his right hand, a spider emitting a faint, ethereal glow materialized in his palm. This was a historical projection of the spider that had bitten Gwen. Amon considered his next move, and in the next instant, one of his clones appeared in the room. The clone asked, "Main body, am I needed for one of your unusual experiments?" "Disguise yourself, then allow this spider to bite you," Amon instructed. "We are going to connect to the Great Web and study the so-called spider totem." Spider-Man's abilities appeared to be a product of science and genetic mutation, but the truth was far more mystical. The power of the Spider-Man was magical in nature. It originated from the spider totem, a supernatural, cosmic deity that searched the endless multiverse for suitable hosts, granting them its power. Most who were chosen became their universe's Spider-Man. Typically, there was only one Spider-Man per universe, and not everyone bitten by a special spider was chosen. However, Amon could leverage his power over error. He could corrupt the identification process, forcing the spider totem to see his clone as a valid host. Once the connection was established, he could trace it back to its source and peer into the secrets of the cosmic being itself. Amon's clone nodded. Its form wavered and then reformed, taking on the perfect appearance of Gwen Stacy. A simple physical disguise was the easiest part. Then, the clone reached out with an unseen hand and stole a small, crucial thread from Gwen Stacy's fate. This was the most important step. Chapter 54, 54. To deceive a cosmic entity like the spider totem, a great deal of preparation was necessary. The key was to create a near-perfect mystical duplicate of a valid host. The irradiated spider was the primary catalyst, but the intersection of fate with the true host, Gwen Stacy, was just as crucial. The spider in Amon's hand moved, slowly crawling onto the arm of the clone that now wore Gwen's face. It opened its fanged mouthparts and bit down hard. In that instant, the monocles worn by both Amon and his clone flared with an unnatural light. The error was activated. The clone now looked identical to Gwen Stacy, shared a stolen thread of her fate, and had just experienced the same spider bite. The mystical similarities were now overwhelming. Before the clone's eyes, the fabric of reality seemed to tear, revealing a cosmic tapestry of shimmering threads. A great web, impossibly vast, stretched into infinity, each strand connecting to a different world, a different reality. "Found it," Amon whispered, his lips curling into a smile. His eyes hazed over, complex symbols shaped like doors appearing in his pupils as he recorded the information flooding his senses. With a firm shove, Amon sent his clone plunging into the endless web he now observed. "You're so rude," the clone's indignant voice echoed for a moment before fading into the cosmic expanse. "Now, let's explore this properly," Amon mused to himself with a low laugh. A very interesting construction. Perhaps I can reference this spider totem to create a totem of my own. But to do so, I will need a cornerstone. Where to find one? While Amon contemplated his next grand project, Gwen, in another testing room, felt a sudden, bizarre lurch. A frantic buzzing filled her skull, her spider sense screaming a warning, and then, just as quickly, it vanished. It was replaced by a profound and unnerving emptiness, as if for a split second, she had been completely disconnected from the world, a ghost in her own reality. The feeling passed as quickly as it came, leaving her breathless. This was the after effect of having a piece of one's destiny stolen. If a person's fate were completely stolen, they would become a phantom, their connections to the real world severed one by one until they simply faded away. People they knew would no longer recognize them, their past would vanish, and the thief would seamlessly take their place. Gwen's nascent spider sense had allowed her to feel the brief, terrifying anomaly. "Ha ha, hey!" Gwen gasped, taking 2 sharp breaths. Peter, standing beside her, looked concerned. "Gwen, what's wrong? Is the test too intense?" Gwen patted her chest, steadying her breathing. "No, the test is fine. It's just... I felt very strange just now. Like I was abandoned by the world." "Are you okay?" Peter asked, his eyes wide as he looked at the barbell Gwen had just casually lifted. It had to weigh several hundred kilograms. "If this equipment doesn't meet your requirements, we also have testing apparatus specifically designed for high-level strength," Klein said, stepping forward. "Please, follow me." He led Gwen and Peter to another, even more impressive-looking device. Peter stared at it and couldn't help but complain, "Is this supposed to be the sword in the stone?" Before them was a massive platform with a giant sword embedded in it. Only the hilt was exposed, making it look exactly like the legendary weapon from Arthurian myth. "Do you want me to pull this sword out?" Gwen asked. Klein nodded. "This is a device for testing pulling force. You just need to stand on the platform and pull upward. The instrument on the side will record your maximum output. It can measure a force of up to 100 tons. I believe that should be sufficient to test your strength." 100 tons? Isn't that a bit of an exaggeration? Peter couldn't imagine anyone having that kind of power. Gwen hopped lightly onto the platform. She rubbed her hands together, gripped the hilt, and then said with a playful grin, "If I pull this out, does that mean King Arthur was actually a girl?" Peter immediately shot back, "What would that mean for Lancelot? Would he be unable to love his king?" "Perhaps King Arthur was just a big eater," Klein added dryly. "And ate all of Britain. Your version of history is a little too wild," Gwen laughed. Ignoring their banter, she took a deep breath and pulled upward with all her might. The giant sword slowly began to rise. Peter watched the numbers climb on the digital display, his jaw slackening. 1 ton, 2 tons, 3, 7, 9, 14 tons, he read aloud, his voice cracking. "Are you kidding me? How are the numbers so high?" He rubbed his eyes in disbelief. "Ha!" Gwen grunted, and the platform beneath her feet groaned. The sword was pulled out another section. The numbers on the display spiked violently before falling back, the peak remaining frozen on the screen, 43 tons. Gwen released the hilt, jumped off the platform, and walked over to Peter. "So, how did I do?" she asked. Peter gently pinched her slender arm. "It's not even that thick," he said in amazement. "How did you generate so much power?" Klein walked over and explained, "Your baseline strength is 14 tons, with an explosive power that can reach 43 tons. You have only just gained this ability. It should increase significantly in the future." Peter swallowed hard. "Gwen, please don't hit me like you did before. I'm afraid I'd actually die." Gwen crossed her arms. "Humph, that depends on your performance," she teased. "All right," Klein said, "now that we've tested strength, we should move on to speed and reflexes, followed by endurance and special abilities. By the time Amon returned to the testing ground, Gwen's evaluation was complete. It looks like the tests are finished. How did it go? Amon asked. It's insane. Peter blurted out. Her strength peaked at 43 tons, her reaction speed is 36 times that of an average person, and her adhesive strength is over 10 tons per hand. She's not just super, she's superhuman. Amon smiled and turned to Gwen. Very impressive data, Miss Stacy. Are you interested in signing a contract with our company? The salary is comparable to that of a top movie star. Become a superhero? But I'm still a student, Gwen hesitated. And my father might not agree. Don't worry about that. We are cooperating with the New York Police Department. Your father will agree if you explain the situation. And if you're worried about your identity, Amon said, his smile widening, well, that's not an issue at all. Klein, demonstrate for her. At Amon's command, Klein's form shimmered and changed. In the blink of an eye, another Peter Parker stood before Gwen. Chapter 55, 55. What kind of ability is this? He became my exact double, even his mannerisms are the same. Peter exclaimed. The fake Peter smiled, then his form shimmered and reverted back to Klein. This is a standard issue item for every official hero at Marvel, he explained. It can transform your appearance to that of anyone with a similar body type, even mimicking their temperament. The purpose is to protect our heroes' identities and prevent their normal lives from being disrupted. It's amazing that this kind of technology exists, Peter said in awe. Gwen was still pondering the offer. Is that so? I haven't really thought about it yet. I'll give you an answer later. Amon smiled, unconcerned. No problem. We are a formal company, and we don't force anyone to join. Let's talk after you've had time to consider it. After a few more words, Peter and Gwen prepared to leave. As he watched them go, Amon offered a parting reminder. Mr. Parker, I sense your luck has not been very good lately. Please be careful, and be sure to hold on to the business card I gave you. Peter was taken aback. A fortune teller? Is this guy a charlatan? He thought, but he kept the rude comment to himself. He simply nodded and said, thanks for the heads up. I'll be careful. On their way to the first-floor lobby of the Marvel building, Peter noticed a very old, ornate silver mirror hanging on the corridor wall. Is this an antique? He wondered aloud. Just hanging out here in the hallway. The security must be incredible. After admiring it for a moment, he subconsciously reached out to touch the mirror's surface, wanting to feel the intricate patterns on the antique frame. Buzz. That strange, unsettling feeling pulsed through Gwen's mind again. Her spider sense pinpointed the source, the silver mirror. Wait, Peter, she cried out, reaching to grab his outstretched hand. But she was a moment too late. Peter was already turning at the sound of her voice, and his fingers brushed against the mirror's surface. Gwen, what did you say? He asked, turning back to her. Seeing his hand on the mirror, Gwen felt a wave of confusion. She wasn't even sure why she had called out to him. The surface of the silver mirror rippled like water, and pale, glowing words began to form. I am the omniscient Ares. You may ask me a question. Hey, there's a sentence on the mirror. Gwen exclaimed, pointing for Peter to look. A sentence? Peter read the pale words. Is this some kind of advanced artificial intelligence? He speculated. A man with a face as black as soot walked up to them, a gloating expression on his face. Haha, you're in for some fun now, kid. Gwen looked at the man, her brow furrowed in disapproval. Who are you? Did you just crawl out of a chimney? The man straightened his clothes and tried to smooth down his singed, fluffy hair. Leon Jones, he announced. Aspiring superhero. This mirror is very interesting. Peter asked doubtfully, "What did you mean just now? What's wrong with this mirror?" Leon shrugged, a look of feigned indifference on his face. "Nothing. Just ask it a question, and you'll find out." He smoothed his hair again, thinking, when will this damn afro go away? What a weirdo, Peter muttered. He turned his attention back to Arides and thought of the perfect question. Why did that guy named Leon say that? Is there a problem with you? The surface of Arides shimmered, and an image appeared. A handsome young man and a sturdy, well-built youth were walking down the corridor. They, too, stopped in front of Arides. The handsome young man, much like Peter, reached out and touched the mirror. He then started laughing and joking with his companion. Suddenly, his expression changed, and a bolt of lightning appeared from nowhere, striking him down. The image zoomed in, showing the young man's face, now charred black by the lightning. It was, unmistakably, the gloating Leon. Leon's face froze. He hadn't expected his embarrassing moment to be replayed for all to see. More words appeared on Arides's surface. Leon Jones lied when answering the question and was punished according to the rules. So that's how it is. No wonder that charcoal-faced guy was gloating, Gwen muttered, just loud enough for Leon to hear. Leon's soot-black face flushed with shame. He wanted to sneak away, but his curiosity about what question Arides would ask this new victim kept him rooted to the spot. The mirror's surface changed again, a new line of pale text emerging. In accordance with the principle of equivalent exchange, you must now answer a question for me. If you answer incorrectly or lie, you will be punished. Here we go, Peter thought. He had already anticipated some sort of punishment. The singed man beside him was all the proof he needed. Ask away. Peter Parker, do you feel inferior and unworthy of your loved one now that she has gained superpowers and become superior? Peter was stunned for a moment but remained outwardly calm. Gwen, however, shifted uncomfortably, her eyes filled with a complicated mix of emotions. Does Peter feel inferior? She wondered. Peter took a deep breath, looked back at Gwen, and said with a nonchalant shrug, Gwen, it's fine. Having such a beautiful and outstanding childhood friend, anyone would feel a little inferior. It's normal. You don't have to worry about me. Peter. Gwen's eyes grew moist. Yes, you are right. Correct answer, the pale words on the mirror seemed to declare, their light fading slightly. Leon, watching from the side, felt a growing sense of injustice. This is wrong. He screamed internally. They're practically flirting. Why am I the one who gets socially executed, while they get a relationship-building moment? He felt like the mirror was personally targeting him. Too embarrassed to stay any longer, he covered his singed hair and slunk away. Peter reached out again, wanting to touch the mirror once more. This time, Gwen grabbed his hand and held it fast. Peter, what are you doing? Didn't you see what happened to that guy? You'll be struck by lightning. It's a magic mirror. Held in Gwen's grip, Peter couldn't move his hand an inch. 43 tons of force is just insane, he thought with a sigh before explaining, I'm thinking this mirror, Arides, can see into thoughts I've never even expressed. Maybe it can tell us what really gave you your powers. What if it wasn't the spider? What if it's something else, something dangerous? If it can tell us, we can deal with any hidden danger before it's too late. Chapter 56, 56. No, Gwen said, her tone firm as she shook her head. Absolutely not. This is too dangerous, Peter. If you can't answer its question, your life could be in danger. I won't let you risk it. Peter saw the unshakable resolve in her eyes and relented. Okay, you're right. It's too dangerous. After leaving the Marvel building, Gwen checked the time. So, what's next? We still have half a day of our break left. Peter's expression turned mischievous. He produced 2 movie tickets from his pocket, waving them in front of her with a flourish. "What do you think these are?" Gwen took one and read the title, Transformers and Iron Man. Her eyes widened in surprise. "Where did you get these?" "I heard this movie is based on the true story of Tony Stark, with Iron Man himself starring in it, and the alien robots are supposedly real. The tickets have been impossible to buy." "Did Harry get them for you?" "No way," Peter said. "Harry's still out of the country. I got them from the Marvel company. They're giving out free tickets since they produced the film." He paused, a grin spreading across his face. "I figured, since we're officially in the superhero business now, we might as well see what the competition is up to. We'll go to the movies this afternoon. The spider research can wait a few days, and we finished all your ability tests ahead of schedule thanks to their equipment." "Okay, let's go see a movie," Gwen agreed without hesitation. "I'm actually really interested to see how it turned out." In his private base, Tony Stark was hunched over a holographic display, trying to figure out how to give the Autobots flight capabilities. He found their ground-based maneuverability to be a massive tactical disadvantage compared to the Decepticons. Ratchet observed Tony's frustrated expression. "Tony, if you are concerned about our mobility, I believe I have a solution." Tony looked up from his work. "You can fix it. Ratchet, you can equip your team with flight devices? Why didn't you do it before? Not being able to fly is your single greatest weakness." Ratchet shook his massive metal head. "No, Tony, my method is different from what you are proposing. You are talking about adding external flight equipment. I am talking about directly improving our logistical mobility." Tony was confused. "Is there a difference? Do you have a faster method than just flying?" "That is correct." The Autobot medic walked over to a large console, and an interface extended from his arm, plugging into it. The images on the main display changed, showing the complex schematic of a large, circular device. "What is this?" Tony asked, his curiosity piqued. Ratchet made a few adjustments. "This is a ground bridge. It is a simplified version of a space bridge, capable of achieving short-distance spatial teleportation." Tony was taken aback. "You have space teleportation tech? How short is short distance?" He knew that an Autobot's definition of short distance might be very different from a human's. "It can only transmit within a single planet," Ratchet said, as if stating the obvious. "It is not capable of long-range interstellar travel." "That's still short distance to you?" "With this, we could reach any point on Earth instantly. Why didn't you build this before?" Ratchet scratched his metal head, a strangely human gesture. "Tony, constructing a ground bridge is a complex process that requires a great deal of specialized equipment. We had just arrived on Earth and were immediately engaged with the Decepticons. We had neither the time nor the resources. Now that things have stabilized, I have been able to modify some of your existing infrastructure to begin the project." "Then what are you waiting for?" Tony's eyes gleamed with manic excitement. "Show me the full schematics, explain the principles, and let's start building it right now." Just then, Jarvis materialized out of thin air, his form coalescing from a stream of data. "Sir, Director Nick Fury of SHIELD is here." "Again?" Tony groaned, his enthusiasm instantly evaporating. What does he want now? He had a terrible impression of the man. SHIELD claimed to be a global protection agency, but when the Decepticons invaded, they were nowhere to be found, hiding in their bunkers. "Sir, he has a female agent with him," Jarvis added. "The one who delivered the fighter jet. Her code name is Black Widow. She is carrying a case that appears to be for you." "For me? Is he trying to bribe me? He really knows how to pick his messengers." Tony thought for a moment. "Let them in. I want to see what that one-eyed wonder is up to." Jarvis vanished. A few moments later, he returned, escorting Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff into the lab. As usual, Tony completely ignored Fury and addressed Natasha directly. Hey, beautiful. You should stop following this guy around. I'll double your salary. There's no future in the secret agent business. Fury, who had walked in with an air of grim authority, felt his momentum deflate. His expression froze for a second before he schooled it back into a neutral mask. Arrogant punk, he cursed internally. Natasha simply smiled. Haha, Stark, I have no problem with that. I see you're in need of an assistant, and I'm very good at being one. I wonder if your secretary would agree. Pepper, that is a problem, Tony said, pinching his chin and pretending to give it serious thought. Fury could no longer contain himself. He forced himself to stick to his plan. Tony Stark, he began, his voice low and serious. The palladium poisoning must be unpleasant. You can't solve the problem on your own, but we at SHIELD have a solution. The energy source for that little light in your chest is not very environmentally friendly. Fury thought he had him. He had found Tony Stark's weakness, and a wave of pride washed over him, his confidence growing with every word. Tony's expression was strange. This guy has spies around me, but his information is laughably out of date, he thought. He couldn't help it, he burst out laughing. Ha ha ha. You think you have something on me, Fury? You're like a little kid showing off a good report card to his parents, so proud of something you don't even understand. Fury's face darkened. Stark, what do you mean? He asked, his voice sullen. Tony crossed his legs, leaned back, and said with unrestrained arrogance, You underestimate me, Fury. You think I wouldn't have already considered that minor issue? I solved it ages ago. Fury's face went rigid. You solved it? Howard's research is still with me. How could you have synthesized the new element? Tony's smile vanished. His eyes narrowed, and his voice became cold and hard. Hey, Cueball. Why are you bringing up my father? Chapter 57, 57. Stark, Nick Fury said slowly, feeling he had regained the upper hand, your father, Howard Stark, was one of the founders of SHIELD. That makes you half a member of SHIELD yourself. New element. S.H.I.E.L.D, Tony muttered, the pieces clicking into place. A sneer spread across his face. He left me a clue to the new element, and you hid it. Now you want to use it as a bargaining chip. You're really something, Fury. Using my own father's legacy against me. Fury didn't flinch at having his intentions exposed. This is a fair deal, he said calmly. Serve as a technical consultant to SHIELD and help us establish a cooperative channel with the Autobots, and I will give you the clues to the new element. Tony let out a disdainful laugh. That's a nice little fantasy you've cooked up, but I, Tony Stark, do not make deals where I'm at a disadvantage. I've already solved the problem. I don't need your so-called help. You should go home, lie down, and have a nice, long dream. Nick Fury stared at Tony with his one good eye, his gaze unwavering. After a long moment, he looked away. Tony Stark, there's no point in acting tough. I'll wait for the day you come to me. He simply didn't believe Stark could independently discover and synthesize a new element, a feat his brilliant father had not accomplished. He nodded to Natasha, signaling that it was time to leave. Natasha said nothing more and followed Fury, the case held tightly in her arms. Goodbye, beautiful, Tony called out, raising his left hand and waving. Natasha paused, surprised. Would Tony Stark really say goodbye so politely? She turned, raised her own hand, and waved back. As she placed her hand back on the case, she felt a flicker of strangeness, the case seemed lighter than before. She looked at Tony, who was still waving, then at Fury's dark, retreating back. She was about to mention her discovery when the thought vanished from her mind. The suspicion, the feeling of strangeness, it was all gone, as if it had never been there. After watching the two of them leave, Tony shook the diary and videotape that had appeared in his left hand. "That female agent is impressive," he said with a smile. She noticed something was off immediately. "I was almost discovered." Ratchet looked at the items that had materialized in Tony's hand. "Tony, did you just steal your father's belongings?" he asked, his tone curious. Tony bristled at the word steal. "Ratchet, this isn't stealing. This was mine to begin with. It was just being temporarily held by those people. I'm just taking back what belongs to me." When he had waved goodbye, he had used the fire glove, disguised as his watch, to steal the useful items from the case. He had also stolen Natasha's very suspicion. The fire glove had an innate ability to distinguish items of value, making the targeted theft simple. "Is the secret to the new element hidden in here?" Tony mused. "Ratchet, put the ground bridge project on hold for now. I think this is more important. Come study this with me." The new element held a greater significance for him than even the promise of teleportation. In Harlem, Peter Parker and Gwen were walking down the street, still buzzing from the movie they had just seen. "It was so cool," Peter said excitedly. "More mind-blowing than any Hollywood blockbuster." "I know, right?" Gwen agreed. "The scenes didn't even look like special effects. They looked real." "They say it's based on true events, like Tony Stark's personal experience, and that the Transformers in it are real," Peter added. "By the way, why was it called Transformers 1, Iron Man? Are they planning to make a whole series?" As they chatted, they noticed a commotion up ahead. The street was crowded, and it looked like there were soldiers. Curious, they walked closer and saw that the military had completely cordoned off the next block. Gwen approached a middle-aged man who seemed approachable. "Excuse me, sir, what happened here?" The man was happy to explain. "About 10 minutes ago, the army just showed up and declared this whole block a military operation zone. I saw tanks and helicopters arriving." "Tanks are here? Something big must be happening," Peter said in surprise. "Peter, let's get out of here," Gwen said, tugging on his sleeve. "I have a bad feeling about this." "Leave?" "Yeah, you're right. We're surrounded by the army, we won't be able to see anything anyway," Peter agreed. Gwen turned to leave via another street. Suddenly, her head began to buzz. Her spider sense was screaming. The danger was imminent. She spun around, lunged at Peter, and tackled him out of the way. "Gwen, what's wrong with you?" he started to ask, but before he could finish, half of a burning car wreck slammed down onto the spot where they had just been standing. The middle-aged man and several other onlookers were crushed, their bodies scattered in a horrific spray of gore. Peter's eyes widened, and he froze, unable to process the carnage. The crowd erupted in screams, and the scene descended into chaos. Gwen suppressed the bile rising in her throat, quickly pulled Peter to his feet, and dragged him to the relative safety of a nearby street corner. "Ha, ha, ha!" The two of them panted, not from exertion, but from sheer terror. "What happened? So many people just died," Peter stammered in panic. "I think I saw a huge, disgusting yellow monster," Gwen said, her voice trembling. "It had bone spurs all over its body." "A monster? Is it a mutant?" Peter asked automatically. "I'm not sure, but mutants aren't usually that horrifying, are they?" Gwen didn't think the creature was a mutant. She cautiously poked her head around the corner to look. Her pupils instantly dilated. The monster was charging straight for them. Without a second thought, Gwen scooped Peter up with ease, leaped onto the wall of the nearest building, and began to bound from one wall to another, ascending the tall building with a dancer's grace. Below them, with a deafening crash, the yellow monster smashed through the building they had just been leaning against. It then picked up a car belonging to some unlucky driver and continued its rampage, shouting one thing over and over. Hulk! Where is Hulk? Is that monster here for revenge? Peter, still cradled in Gwen's arms, couldn't help but quip. It was a nervous habit, making jokes when faced with extreme stress. Not far away, in the Marvel building, Scott Summers was handling administrative affairs when he received an urgent message. Monstrous creature wreaking havoc in Harlem. Military is unable to contain it. Scott read the message, his expression grim. Will this be our company's first official operation, he thought. But with the military involved, this won't be easy. Chapter 58, 58. A knock sounded on Scott's office door. He opened it to find Klein standing there, his expression calm and polite as always. Captain Scott, I trust you've received the alert. A monster is rampaging through Harlem. It is time for you to mobilize. I have already assembled the personnel. Assembled already? That was efficient, Scott remarked, surprised. He followed Klein to the operations hall. Ilyana, Jean, Piotr, and a sullen, dark-faced Leon were already there. Scott glanced at Leon, surprised. He recognized the young agent, but couldn't understand why his skin was now several shades darker and his hair was standing on end in a singed afro. Leon just offered an awkward, sheepish smile. Scott dismissed the thought and focused on the most pressing question. Where's Wolverine? Uncle Wolf went out this evening, Ilyana said. I think he went to a bar. Influenced by Amon, she had also taken to calling Logan Uncle Wolf. The lazy bum, Scott muttered, unable to resist the opportunity to slander his rival. The main screen in the hall lit up, displaying a live feed of a hideous yellow monster tearing through the city streets. Klein began his briefing. The creature is codenamed Abomination. Its original identity was Emil Blonsky, a Special Forces soldier who was injected with a variant of the super soldier serum and then exposed to gamma radiation derived from the Hulk. The resulting mutation transformed him into his current state. His baseline strength exceeds 80 tons, with an explosive power that can reach 100 tons. He possesses an extremely powerful jumping ability, capable of covering up to 2 kilometers in a single leap. His hide is incredibly dense and can withstand artillery fire. Based on our analysis, only Wolverine's adamantium claws or Ilyana's energy sword are likely to penetrate his defense. You must be cautious. Where did you get this information? Jean asked, surprised not by the creature's power, but by the source of Klein's intelligence. Didn't this abomination just appear? Klein simply smiled. Please trust the capabilities of our intelligence department. The team changed into their combat uniforms and prepared to depart. Leon donned a mask, and as it settled onto his face, the charred skin was covered. The mask seemed to squirm for a moment, and his features returned to their state before the lightning strike, even his wild hair settling back into its normal style. This is a nice piece of gear, he said, nodding at his handsome reflection in a polished surface. The other members of the X-Men chose not to wear the masks. They were not clandestine heroes, their identities were public, and they had no disfigurements to hide. A sleek, silver fighter jet waited for them. This was not the X-Men's Blackbird, but a vessel belonging to the Rider Clan's fighter squadron, piloted by a rider named Boeing, who had been assigned to transport duties for Marvel. Accompanying the heroes were several Marvel employees armed with high-tech cameras, their job to record the team's actions. Wolverine felt incredibly unlucky. He had just gone out for a quiet drink, and now the world was ending around him. Drawn by the commotion outside, he had stepped out of the bar just in time to be hit by a flying car, which embedded him deep into the wall of a brick building. It took him a great deal of effort to pull himself free from the rubble. Fortunately, his adamantium skeleton and powerful healing factor meant he was more annoyed than injured. Otherwise, he would have been reduced to a pile of Wolverine-flavored fragments. Pah! He spat out a mouthful of wood chips and glass shards, shook the dust from his body, and stalked back toward the street. He was going to teach that hideous yellow monster a lesson. The creature hadn't gone far. It was holding a car, smashing it against the pavement while roaring the name Hulk over and over. Wolverine's hands drooped slightly at his sides. With a faint snick, 6 adamantium claws extended from his knuckles, gleaming in the dark. He flexed his powerful muscles and launched himself at the abomination, moving like a wolf on the hunt. The abomination was still caught up in its destructive tantrum, trying to lure out Bruce Banner and the Hulk within him. He didn't believe a being as powerful as the Hulk could simply vanish. "Ack, my back!" Abomination suddenly cried out in pain. It felt as if someone had just stabbed him with a handful of thick, sharp needles. Damn insects! He spun around and saw a spiky-haired man clinging to his back, raking his claws down his spine. Wolverine's eyes met Abomination's, and his animal instincts screamed at him. Something was very wrong. He tried to push off, to get away from the monster, but it was too late. A massive yellow hand snatched him out of the air. Wolverine tried to resist, but the power in the grip was beyond anything he had ever imagined. He was as helpless as an ordinary man caught in a hydraulic press. He was caught fast in Abomination's hand. The pressure was immense. He felt his ribs crack and his lungs collapse, but his adamantium-laced bones refused to break. His flesh was torn and bloodied, but his healing factor was already working, knitting him back together even as he was being crushed. Abomination was confused. He knew his own grip strength. He could crush a car into a ball of scrap metal. Yet, this small, resilient creature in his hand refused to be squeezed into paste. It was like trying to crush a solid steel wrench. "What a stubborn piece of metal," he growled. Unable to kill Wolverine directly, Abomination reared back his arm and, as if throwing a javelin, hurled him with all his might. Wolverine became a projectile, smashing through the side of a nearby apartment building. Gwen and Peter were still on an upper floor, observing the chaos below, when they saw something fly past and slam into their building, shaking it to its foundations. "Did someone just fly past here?" Peter asked tentatively. Gwen nodded, her eyes wide. "It was a man. Let's go check on him. I think he was fighting that monster." After her mutation, her eyesight had become incredibly sharp, and she had witnessed the brief, brutal encounter. The residents of the building had already been evacuated by the military, otherwise Wolverine's impact would have surely caused casualties. They found him embedded in a wall in the middle of a stairwell, struggling to pull himself free. Abomination had thrown him with such force that he was stuck fast. "Sir, do you need any help?" a pleasant female voice asked. Wolverine looked over and saw a young blonde girl leaning over, looking down at him. "What help can a kid give me?" he grumbled. "If that boy over there had any muscle on him, maybe he could be useful. Now, get out of the way before you get hurt." Gwen just pursed her lips, ignored his words, and placed a hand on his shoulder. Wolverine was about to tell her to stop messing around when he felt an immense force on his shoulder. With the sound of shattering concrete, Gwen pulled him clean from the wall. "This..." Wolverine was speechless. He couldn't believe the slip of a girl in front of him possessed such incredible strength. The power he felt from her was eerily similar to that of the hideous yellow monster. "Who are you?" he asked, completely bewildered. Peter, seeing his opportunity, held up the bag in his hand. He had somehow managed not to drop their snacks during the panic. "We're just ordinary people passing by. We were attacked by the monster and took refuge up here. Then we found you. Look, this is the food we bought, but it's all been smashed into mush. It's all that monster's fault. These were all my favorite snacks." Chapter 59, 59. Ordinary people. Wolverine's voice rose, his tone laced with disbelief. An ordinary person couldn't possibly be that strong. Boom! 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 A series of explosions roared from the street below. The three of them peered through the hole Wolverine had made in the wall. "It's the military!" Peter exclaimed. Several armored vehicles and a large number of soldiers had arrived on the scene, some armed with rifles, others with rocket launchers. The abomination simply plucked a flying rocket-propelled grenade out of the air, a wicked grin spreading across its monstrous face. It then smashed the projectile against its own chest. The resulting explosion did nothing but momentarily set the creature on fire. The abomination casually patted out the flames, completely unharmed. "That's insane. Even a bazooka can't hurt him," Peter complained. Wolverine nodded grimly. He knew firsthand how tough the monster's hide was, his own adamantium claws had barely managed to break the skin. "Oh no! The monster is heading toward the crowd!" Gwen cried out. Having dismantled the military's armored vehicles, the creature was now charging toward the crowded streets of Broadway, an area the military had not yet evacuated. "I have to help." Gwen prepared to jump down and begin evacuating the civilians. "Don't go. It's too dangerous," Peter pleaded. Gwen turned, her expression resolute. "Peter, I know you're worried about me, but you also know my father is the police commissioner. He taught me from a young age that with great power comes great responsibility. Now that I have these powers, I can't just hide here and watch that monster attack innocent people. I think I have the ability to stop him." Peter knew Gwen's character. He knew that nothing he could say would change her mind. He nodded, his voice filled with concern. "Just evacuate the crowd. Don't confront that monster head-on. This area is close to the Marvel headquarters. The superheroes should be here soon. You don't need to do anything else." "Okay, Peter, don't be such a mother hen," she said with a small smile. "I still have my wits about me. I won't go toe-to-toe with that thing." With that, she leaped from the building, using the walls to propel herself toward the chaos below. Watching her go, Peter suddenly had a thought. He looked at Wolverine. "You seem like a superhero too. Why don't you go down and stop that monster?" Wolverine looked at him, his expression one of world-weary resignation. "Kid, I can't fly. I'm waiting for the elevator." He gestured toward the elevator doors, which were stuck. "Damn it! The elevator's jammed on the 9th floor. The impact must have broken it." He glanced at Peter. "Kid, looks like we're taking the stairs." "Okay," Peter said, glancing at the floor number beside the elevator. "But this is the 23rd floor." He offered a moment of silence for his knees. Gwen moved with incredible speed, leaping between buildings in a display of breathtaking parkour. She quickly reached the area where the abomination was rampaging. She ducked into a destroyed storefront and found a large mask, the kind used for masquerade balls, and pulled the hood of her sweatshirt up. She had no desire for the whole world to know about her new abilities. The abomination was destroying everything in its path: people, buildings, cars, all tossed aside like a child's toys. Gwen hid in the chaos behind the creature, then sprinted toward the terrified citizens who were still frozen in panic. Grabbing a bystander, she pulled them to what she hoped was a safe location. The man she rescued was still in a daze. He had only felt someone grab his shoulders, and then an incredible force had dragged him across the street. "Run! It's dangerous here! Get out of here!" Gwen shouted at him. Ignoring the man, Gwen quickly scanned her surroundings. Pulling people away one by one was too slow. She needed a tool. She spotted her target, a high-rise window washing platform that had been smashed against a glass wall. She leaped up, grabbed the safety rope, and gave it a hard tug. It was strong. Tying a chunk of concrete to one end as a weight, she swung the rope, hooking it around a streetlight high above the abomination's head. Then, she leaped, swinging through the air. Gwen had been a member of the school's dance troupe, and her natural flexibility and coordination had been greatly enhanced by her new powers. Swinging on the rope felt as natural as breathing. "Maybe I should ask Peter to help me build a device that can shoot ropes," she thought mid-swing. "With his skills, I'm sure he could do it." An electrician was about to be crushed by a car thrown by the abomination when a rope suddenly wrapped around his waist, yanking him out of harm's way. Max Dillon landed hard at the other end of the street, dazed and confused. He heard a voice warn him, "It's dangerous here. Leave, quickly." He looked up and saw Gwen's retreating back as she swung off to save another person. "She saved me," he whispered. He stared after her for a long moment, imprinting her image in his mind before turning and running to safety. Gwen didn't know she had just become a beacon of light for someone. She continued her rescue efforts, pulling bystander after bystander away from the abomination's path of destruction. The work was not difficult or tiring, but it was attracting unwanted attention. Using her core strength, she twisted in mid-air, and a flying car just grazed her clothes. She landed against the side of a building, her body parallel to the ground, and patted her chest, her heart pounding. She had almost been hit. The abomination turned its hateful gaze on her. "Little bug," it snarled, "you're the one causing all this trouble." It bent its powerful legs, crouched low, and then leaped with explosive force toward her. "Does this monster have springs for feet?" Gwen thought, her eyes wide. "How can it jump so fast?" She quickly jumped to the opposite wall, narrowly avoiding the attack. The abomination's hands and feet dug into the building's facade, anchoring it to the surface. It then launched itself at her again. Gwen didn't hesitate. She began to run horizontally across the face of the building, confident that the clumsy monster couldn't match her speed and agility. This was her advantage. A fantastical scene unfolded on the streets of New York, a young girl running along the walls of skyscrapers as if on flat ground, a hideous yellow monster in hot pursuit. "This shot is amazing," an excited young man with a camera exclaimed. He was following Gwen and the abomination, professionally recording the chase. The chaotic terrain didn't seem to affect him at all. He would vanish from one spot and reappear in another, always keeping them perfectly in frame. We'll call it Beauty and the Beast. Chapter 60. Did this freak graduate from a demolition academy? Gwen thought, panting as she ran along the side of a building. If he keeps this up, he's going to tear down all of Broadway. She had been kiting the monster for nearly a minute, and in that short time, 3 buildings had been leveled. On the street below, Wolverine was running for all he was worth. He had finally made it down from the 23rd floor and was now sprinting through the chaos. He reached the base of the building where Gwen and the abomination were dueling just in time to see them leap to another building. "Damn it! Can't you just fight on the ground?" he cursed, then continued his pursuit. Unable to fly, Wolverine had no choice but to rely on his own 2 legs to chase the 2 urban Tarzans. Gwen's plan was to lure the monster to an area with fewer people. If Broadway took any more damage, the cost would be astronomical. Suddenly, a brilliant red beam of energy shot down from the sky, striking the abomination square in the chest. The force of the blast knocked the creature from the building, and it crashed heavily onto the road below. Cyclops and the others had arrived. A silver fighter jet hovered in the air. At its open hatch stood Scott Summers, arms crossed, calmly observing the scene. Scott's eyes were a gateway to another dimension, a dimension filled with the same red concussive energy he could project. His ruby quartz visor, developed by Beast, allowed him to control this power, adjusting its intensity and width. The downed abomination pushed itself up, the charred flesh on its chest already regenerating. It grinned malevolently and leaped into the air, launching itself directly at the fighter jet. Piotr saw the creature coming. His body began to transform, shifting into shimmering, silver-white metal. "Jean, give me a push," he yelled. He took a running start and jumped from the jet, heading straight for the airborne abomination. From the jet, Jean extended a hand, and a wave of telekinetic force slammed into Piotr, accelerating him like a bullet. As Piotr's body completed its transformation, he grew in size, becoming a metal giant over 2 meters tall, though still dwarfed by the abomination. Propelled by Jean's power, he met the creature in mid-air, his metallic fist crashing into its surprised face. At the same moment, the abomination's own fist slammed into Pyotr's abdomen. The metal that composed Colossus was no ordinary alloy. His mutant ability allowed him to swap his own atoms with those of a super-dense osmium-like metal from another dimension, granting him incredible durability, second only to vibranium and adamantium. As long as the damage he sustained didn't exceed 70% of his body, he could slowly recover, his strength and mobility unaffected. The abomination felt as if it had punched a solid steel wall. It felt no give, just a loud, metallic clang. Pyotr, however, was unmoved. The abomination was sent flying backward, crashing to the ground once more. Colossus followed, landing in a perfect three-point superhero pose. The jet landed nearby, and Leon disembarked. Looking at Pyotr's pose, he couldn't help but ask, "Doesn't that hurt your knees?" Pyotr turned his head. "It's hard to get hurt in this state," he rumbled. "And I can't feel any pain." The abomination spat out a mouthful of bloody foam and glared at Colossus with feral eyes. "Another tin can. Abomination, recognize your strength. Let me tear you apart." Seeing the creature's ferocious expression, Leon stepped in front of Pyotr. "Go get him, Pyotr. I'll bless you with some good luck." He reached out with his senses, searching for a source of luck. He found a powerful one in the sky not far away, a person whose fortune was unusually high. "Okay, you're the one," he thought. He activated his ability, siphoning a portion of that luck and redirecting it to Pyotr, while simultaneously draining some of the abomination's fortune. Not far away, Bruce Banner stood at the open hatch of a helicopter, looking down at the ruined city. He had decided to unleash the Hulk one last time to end the chaos. He turned to his girlfriend, Betty Ross, and managed a small smile. "Betty, wait for me to come back." Then, he jumped. As he fell, the wind whistling past his ears, he called out desperately, "Hulk, come out!" Just as he was about to hit the ground, a large truck sped through the intersection, clipping him. He bounced off the pavement like a skipping stone and flew a considerable distance before landing in a heap on the road. The truck driver was confused. "I don't remember any speed bumps here," he muttered. "Was that a stray dog? I better get out of here before the Animal Protection Association shows up." He quickly turned and drove away from the scene of the crime. Leon looked at the battered, bloody form of Bruce Banner and scratched his head. Banner had been the powerful source of luck he had sensed. Logically, even with a portion of his luck siphoned off, he shouldn't have ended up in such a miserable state. "Could it be that my control has decreased?" he wondered, then silently backed away from the unconscious man on the ground. The abomination threw a powerful punch at Colossus, but something felt wrong. His attacks, which should have been devastating, were barely having an effect. He could feel that the Silver Man was weaker than him, yet his blows couldn't even push him back. Colossus, on the other hand, landed a solid punch on the abomination's head, causing stars to burst before its eyes. Though blessed with Leon's luck, the power gap between Colossus and the abomination was still too great for him to cause any substantial damage. "Pyotr, hold him!" Illyana's voice cried out from behind. Pyotr immediately understood. He braced himself, took a punch from the abomination, and then grabbed its arms, locking the creature in place. "Tin Can, what are you doing?" the abomination roared. "Ugly freak, stop yelling," Illyana's voice replied. A crack in space opened above the abomination's head, and she dropped through it, wielding a massive energy sword. She plunged the blade deep into the monster's back, then sliced downward, opening a massive gash. The abomination screamed in agony, its strength fading. Seizing the opportunity, Colossus used his leverage to throw the creature to the ground, then quickly pinned it beneath him. "Illyana, well done!" Colossus praised. Illyana walked over, lifted the monster's head, and said with a grin, "This monster isn't so tough." We defeated it easily. The cameraman rushed over. Quick, strike a cool pose. Ilyana, point your lightsaber at its head. Colossus, put your foot on its chest. Cyclops and Jean, stand on either side. And Leon, you give a peace sign on the side. With a click, a photo of a superhero team victorious over a fearsome monster was taken.